the biggest thing that's really important to me about recruiting and about sales is actually meeting people. My entire career has been developing relationships, creating rapport. I remember my old manager would actually be worried, and asking me, the person who sort of taught me recruiting came to me and was saying, why are you going to visit that company? They don't have any openings. Why are you going out to visit them? And I'm like, you know what? They will think of me when they do have openings. And they'll think of me, the person who took them to lunch and wined and dined them a little bit. And they'll come back to me when they're a growing company right now. Even though they don't have openings right now, they will in the future. So it was all about that personal touch, that meeting people that is, to me, so important to every aspect of sales. This is the way that I try to manage my people that I manage in recruiting and have trained, of trying to get them to meet their customers, tried to get them to be out there, either meeting their customers or having them, come into our office, basically. That way, I can actually look at the job that I have now. 15 years ago, I visited a company called Object Design in Burlington, Massachusetts. I met with the HR, and from that meeting, she introduced me to the head of professional services. I met with that professional services manager. I created a rapport, and fast forward 15 years later, and that's the job. That's how I got into Linaro, because he needed to grow. He was the vice president of Linaro at the time. He needed someone to take over, and that's where he called upon me. In my role, I do a little bit more than just recruiting. I actually handle all of our HR. I handle our finance in the US and in Canada. I have a small team, and we're quite busy on many different fronts. So I get approached all the time from people trying to sell me things. It's amazing how many times on a daily basis that someone reaches out. Either it's a recruiting firm wanting to do business with Linaro, it's a software vendor selling tools, it's something to deal with our onboarding or whatever. And these people, these salespeople, they invite me to go to meeting, or they invite me to WebEx, or they invite me to join me, ClearSlide presentations. I just want one of them to actually invite me to a Blue Jeans call. I want one of them to invite me to a video conference call, because to me, that's so important. Why do I want to buy something from someone that I've never seen their face, that I've never actually felt like I met them? Now, again, going back in my career, I certainly can say that I liked that personal touch, and meeting people, but it was also time consuming. But at least now with video conferencing, I'm able to meet people all over the world using Blue Jeans, and I'm able to actually have those salespeople call upon me. So now I actually sort of strongly urge the salesperson that's calling me, hey, let me book, instead of them trying to schedule it, let me book a Blue Jeans call with you. 1-2 clicks of a button and I'm there. And it's really cool. And I get a chance to meet that person. But still some of the companies that are out there, they still say, oh, I don't have a camera on my screen. I don't have that. Well, it kind of isn't very impressive in today's day that some of the sales teams don't have a camera on their desk. But actually with Blue Jeans, you can use your iPhone, you can use an Android phone, you can use your iPad, whatever it is, and have a call with me. I really deeply believe that video is the future of where all things are going to go. From a retail standpoint to a recruiting standpoint, I'm able to do so much more. I kind of think that this is deeply, going back a little bit more about my background, this is so important to me because back in the late 90s, early 2000 timeframe, I came up with an idea. That idea was a company called Career Voice. And what it was a way of a job seeker picking up a phone, dialing an 800 number, and recording a message about themselves. That message at the time would play from Windows Media or Real Audio when someone clicked on it. And, the business sort of took off. I loved it. It was a great thing, and it was fun. It was adding passion. It was adding excitement to the recruiting process. Even businesses were using it. Unfortunately, September 11th, 2001 sort of took a toll on that business, and I had to close it down. But I really think that it's always been in my head that that's such an important concept. Um, as I mentioned, I'm sort of involved with more things at Linaro than just the recruiting, and I'm dealing with a lot of issues with the company internally. So I help get people in the door at the company, and I also try to keep them here, keep them happy, keep them excited, keep them retention is a very important part. And that's where, how am I supposed to meet with people all over the world that we have? Just a quick little overview on Linaro, not to say too much here, but because it's not about Linaro, it's really about the use of video. But we're headquartered in the UK, Cambridge. We're up to about 250 employees right now when you combine that with our member assigned engineers. When a company joins Linaro, they also dedicate engineers that are assigned to Linaro. So the combination puts us up at around 250 people. It's a very, I mentioned my family, so if I'm trying to explain Linaro to my family or friends in a way they don't really get it unless they get really basic to what it is, because it's a very highly technical company. But what Linaro basically is, if you've hopefully heard of ARM, ARM is technology, it's intellectual property that's used in phones. Every Android phone, all the devices like Chromebooks, different things like that, have ARM technology in it. And what you want to be able to do with that ARM technology, it's basically companies will license that technology. And once they license it, it's very expensive. The most amazing thing about ARM that I've ever heard is that it's in 50 billion devices across the world, 5 times the amount of people on Earth. ARM is in these devices powering. So companies like Facebook are a member of Linaro because they want to make their servers work faster. They want to have their servers run on ARM instead of Intel processors. So that's the basic of what ARM is about. And what Linaro is a way of companies, once they invest in the ARM technology, the next thing they want to do is work with open source software and Linux. And that's where Linaro's expertise comes into play, because we have a team across the world that I can basically back up by statistics as some of the strongest Linux kernel professionals in the world, because it's all open source technology. So that's enough about us. Just like one thing to just stress upon too is we have these people spread all over the world. I'm in 26 different countries and 12 different states. Even though I only have like 40 people in the US, we've managed to spread those over like 12 different states. So let me now talk a little bit about the evolution of hiring and what I've seen. First off, I certainly was not around in the 1900s. Thank you, Amy and Brittany, for that slide there. But I did start my career in 1990. And first, when I think about it, I was basically spending my day without a computer on my desk. From 1990 to 95, around the 93 timeframe, I got a dumb sort of terminal that wasn't connected to the internet. And I basically, what we would do is we would sit there on Monday mornings and rip up the Sunday newspaper. That was what we did. And we passed out the little leads. And then our team of recruiters would basically take those leads, which is a new company we'd never heard of or something, and then try to call upon and actually try to get a live meeting in person with that company. The funny thing is there's no way to look up the phone numbers for these things. So you use these things called phone books. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but you basically use these big yellow books, look up the phone number. You have to remember your spelling. I remember I was really bad at going A, B, C, D, E, F, and then try to figure out where I was looking in this big, huge, massive book for the health phonics. From a candidate standpoint, back in the early 90s to 2000, it was pretty similar in a way to the objectives I have right now. I wanted to meet those candidates, but my business was all within a 20-mile radius of my office, pretty much. Those are the customers that we mostly had. Sometimes we'd be talking to somebody to drive like an hour to come and visit with us in our office. And that was not exactly always the most productive from a time standpoint. We also would sometimes drive to meet candidates. So you get in your car, you maybe for meeting one candidate, you wasted 3 to 4 hours of your day. Going back to that time frame before you had a computer on your desk and you had fancy applicant tracking systems and human resource systems, I had index cards. I'm sure some of the people on the call remember the index cards that we had, and we would write people's names down, and you'd have other people's notes because the recruiting business was this churning business of people leaving and changing jobs. And you'd write the notes, and then eventually you would graduate that index card up to be a resume. It became a resume, and it was a printed, typed resume with the company's fancy logo on it. And I remember back to actually sharing a desk, having a red, a blue, and a black book with somebody who's now a vice president of recruitment and HR, who at the time, him and I were, entry-level recruiters at the time. And we shared a desk, and we basically had our best candidates. Our red candidates was our hottest candidates, and the ones that we wanted to push out there to the market. We would literally get in our cars, drive, drop off resumes. We would fax resumes. I remember long lines at the fax machine, just trying to send that resume to your customers. It got very frustrating, so I basically always urged to go and drop those resumes off. When I'm looking at it now, it's still sort of the same thing. It's me wanting to meet people live. And luckily, Blue Jeans has allowed me to do that and allowed me to do it very effectively, I believe. And I'm going to explain that in just a little bit here. So moving on, looking more, again, I've covered a lot of this, but basically when we're looking at finding candidates, there weren't as many systems built up in the 90s. Thanks to LinkedIn, now it's amazing for recruiters because you've got a little bit of a background. You can actually go after passive candidates. You can basically reach out in a way that you weren't able to do because it used to be calling through company phone books, trying to find out who you were trying to reach. And that became very, very difficult at times as well, because you would basically be calling down a phone book and not knowing who you're calling on the other end. If you could have been calling the president of the company, you could have been calling someone who is actually the software engineer that you're trying to reach, or it could be someone who's in an administrative function or something. But so you had to react with what you heard on the phone and take some notes and deal with all of that. So again, now moving forward to today with the tools that we have, I'm able to talk to people, and now my job has kind of changed from basically dealing globally with candidates. It used to be just like 20 minutes from the office, trying to get them to come into the office. Now I'm actually meeting candidates across the world. And it's really a way of shifting things now from live face-to-face meetings to phone screens, where honestly, phone screens really, I kind of tune myself out. If I'm just using just the phone now, I'm so used to being video. Video brings everything alive. I have to be attentive. I have to be smooth. I have to not be drifting off. I have to be in the conversation. So it allows me to be really much more interactive with the candidate. I try my best not to take notes, because if I was taking notes, my fingers would be up like this on the computer right now or on down here. And that's difficult. So one cool thing that happens with Blue Jeans that probably wasn't designed or thought that way, but it actually helps me out, is when I'm on a call with a candidate, I basically can now just hit one button and hit record. And I explain it to the candidate. I say, hey, I let them talk. I let them explain themselves. And when they explain themselves and I hear some good stuff, I say, you know what? I have a feature here with Blue Jeans that I'd like to use. If you don't mind, I'd like to, with your permission, I'd like to hit record and actually record a minute to a couple minutes or 3 minutes of your time. And that works really, really well, because I'm not scaring the candidate by telling them in advance I'm going to record them. I'm telling them right away, right there, and I'm just saying, repeat some of the stuff you just said. So I am coaching the candidate a little bit, but I'm getting them to kind of explain why they feel that they fit the job, and I'm getting them to explain why they feel that they're interested in Linaro in this case. So what it does that's really cool is when that's done, when that video, when I hit stop, about a minute to a couple minutes later, I'm getting an email, and that email is giving me a shareable link of that actual video of what I had with the candidate. So then I take that shareable link and I add it to my applicant tracking system, and I send it via what I call a submittal to the hiring manager. And our hiring managers, she and he will basically get all excited because they now have a way of seeing that candidate, hearing from that candidate, explain their background, explain their strengths before they only had a resume, right? So now they've got a more dynamic, thorough interview. And actually, what I was mentioning Blue Jeans does for me is I was getting in the bad habit of not taking notes. So I'd interview one person after another. I'd have good calls. I'd actually do it on video, but I'd forget to take the notes. So when I get this recording, it allows me to kind of process, okay, here's what I talked to Sally about. Here's what I talked to Billy about. And then I write down some notes and type some notes. And basically I'm able to share those with the hiring manager. So it's pretty cool, and I really like how that works well. So moving on here a little bit. Again, back to the spread of Linaro. We're in 26 different countries. I've got people in Asia, about a third of the company in Asia, a third in Europe, a third in North America. And it certainly brings into some interesting challenges. It brings us to the fact that we've got people that maybe work on a team, and how do they interact with their teammates? We have time zone differences. We have latency of data. Someone in China might need something, but they're not necessarily going to get it from the person in Canada that they need it from, maybe possibly for 12 hours. So it's a tough arrangement, and I'm sure many people on the call work globally now and understand what I'm talking about. I'm able to get everybody talking using the tools that we have. We have other things besides Blue Jeans, but Blue Jeans is definitely, without question, my preferred tool because it's easy. It's basically a way that someone can just go on any browser, plus they have a desktop app now. You don't even need to use your browser. It's a way that somebody on Linux, they can use Firefox. On PC, Mac, they can use any sort of browser or the desktop app. They can call from their Android phone. They can call from their iPhone, and I can have a video conference with that person. The thing that's also, again, very important to me is the whole company communication. So on a daily basis now, we have thousands and thousands of meetings that have happened where maybe one-on-one, maybe 50 people on a training call, which is what we do typically on Thursdays. We have a technical training. We record it. One of our engineers presents, and it works really, really nice. Our CEO now actually will use Blue Jeans and will talk to the entire company. Very easy for him to use. The quality has been excellent. We have no problems with I think the biggest that we've done is because we have people spread out. I think the biggest that we had was 76 people on a call, and that went beautifully. With this primetime tool, I know you can go well past 100. At this point, I don't have primetime. In fact, this is my first time using primetime, but hopefully in the future, Linaro will go to a big enough point that I'll need to be purchasing that. So moving on. There are some things, like I said, that are some issues that I'm trying to work on a little bit. We did an employee survey back in April of 2014, and the number one issue, the root cause of everything that was pretty much complained about was based on internal communication. We were doing things like putting out press releases before we were telling our employees. We were doing things where we hired new people and nobody knew about it. We were starting new divisions. That's what happens when you're a growing company, right? So Blue Jeans has certainly helped fix a lot of these things that we had for issues in 2014. I'm doing weekly technical training, as I mentioned. One of our engineers pop it on for 45 minutes or an hour of everybody's time about very technical subjects. Half the stuff that they talk about, I don't even know because I'm not really an engineer, but I'm there helping with the call. Our employee meetings that we have, where we've had, again, as big as 76 people. I want to get this used in our Linaro Connect events to show that we're all about, as a company, about getting our people together. Twice a year, we fly every employee in the company to a specific location. We typically do it in Asia and in North America, typically. And so, for example, in September, we have our next Connect event, and everyone who works for us in the entire company or is affiliated with Linaro is hopefully going to be at that event, and Linaro pays for that. What I want to do is I actually want to have Blue Jeans running at all of those meetings. So it would be really cool because there's many different sessions going on, and you can't make every single one. But now with Blue Jeans, we could record the session. People can watch it from afar, or they can watch it even if they're at the event. They could watch it in their spare time. They can watch the recording. Blue Jeans definitely is helping us extremely with Asia. We have specific problems, as many of you probably know, that China blocks Google in many ways. So Blue Jeans calls are not blocked, and that way we can communicate with our Chinese and employees and our Chinese member-assigned engineers. I've tried another thing as well, which hasn't gone exactly as planned, but it's got a lot of usage, but it's not exactly as planned. I wanted to have sort of like a virtual water cooler where all of our people throughout the world could actually just sit there and go online, click in one room, and 24/7 be there with actually on a call. And it hasn't worked because we haven't timed it well. But I know that it will work, and that's something that I want to do going further even in the future. One thing that I do want to mention is that prior to Blue Jeans, I was using Skype for my calls, and it was okay. But first off, Skype is now owned by Microsoft. Linaro is all about Linux, so they're sort of direct competitor to us. But beyond the Microsoft aspect of it, I can't record calls using Skype. I can't have multiple people on a call. And the biggest, toughest, most annoying thing to me was right now I have the way of a candidate using another tool that integrates well with Blue Jeans. I have a way of allowing the candidates to schedule a call with me. So they can actually view my calendar, book a call, and they get the Blue Jeans instructions sent to them. They join the call. They're typically there before I'm even there. And it works really, really nice. With Skype, I was actually having to give my personal Skype address to people. That really got kind of annoying because then every candidate that I dealt with was trying to reach out to me on Skype after our interview and saying, hey, what's going on? And because it's 24/7, I was getting pinged at all sorts of hours of the night. And that really was the number one reason why I kind of searched for something else, at least from the HR standpoint, from the recruitment standpoint, to replace Skype. We do have ability, and some of our engineers still use Google Hangouts in the company. That's okay, but Google Hangouts can't record. They also max at 15 people. I'm also a little bit worried about some of the security that gets done with that on those calls. These Blue Jeans calls just work absolutely beautiful for me. Moving on, kind of looking at the future. How on earth am I going to try to continue to expand the usage of Blue Jeans? How can I get all of the people in our company connected more than they actually are? How can I do things like have email is just, as probably most people on the call, you get email after email after email, and emails can get misinterpreted. You can really screw up on emails. One thing that I've started doing a little bit, and I want to do a lot more in the next year, because this is kind of moving into year 2 with Blue Jeans pretty soon, is I want to just basically record a message and send it to somebody. It's so simple. I just come right online. I click record. I hit stop. I send my message. Then I'm actually getting a voice message to that person with video. It's beyond even a voicemail system now. It's George Jetson's TV, our phone system that I really wanted, years and years ago. So it's really cool. I'm able to think that this might actually even reduce some of our emails, increase the data flow, and have less of a latency of data by using a lot more of these messages. And I really think that there's a lot that we can do going forward. I want to have all of our onboarding, for example, I want to have that recorded. Right now, it's the first impression a new employee gets to my company is the actual onboarding process. And what do they get currently? They get a whole, probably, which is similar to most companies, you get a whole bunch of text things you got to do. You got an email list of this, and then you got to go check out the system. With Blue Jeans, I could record all by myself. I could go into our HR system that I'm trying to instruct the people from an onboarding standpoint. I could go into that system, and I could actually just stop playing around in the system, share the screen, hit record, make a beautiful video about it. Now I have this video forever that I can send to new employees. And I really see our onboarding going that way. So I feel that at this point, that's about as much as I could have said. I know there's probably many more things that I forgot that I wanted to say.